Certainty Principle by David Light. Chapter 8. In is for incomes. Account my incomes. Quote, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. As attributed to Albert Einstein. Incomes are monies, value, or benefit received in exchange for work or investment. Certainty requires calculating and keeping track, a numerical accounting of value, both prospective and return, from my decisions and actions. Achieving any mandate is impossible without keeping account. Quote, the general who wins a battle makes many calculations in his temple, meaning brain, before the battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations, unquote. Sun Tzu, Art of War, 5th century BC. Living is not war, of course, but war is a rather unforgiving form of living. Manifesting mandates requires vigilance, preventing me from drifting into unsubstantiated reasoning that could, in Sun Tzu's example, literally kill me. Focus needs numbers because the brain, as with the paramecium, is at its root a counting device. When I account and communicate numerically, I am speaking the least ambiguous language of neurologics. Therefore, Sun Tzu's advice generalizes to the achievement of any mandate. What I can count, I can conquer. An identity focus causes me to drift, but scoring brings me back to the reality track. Once, while I was going through a particularly trying family episode, I decided to build a deck on my house. The project was tedious at times, but refining my technique for measuring cuts and angles calmed me down. There was immense pleasure in learning to calculate a perfect fit. There is wonder in numbers, but what numbers really matter? Not all numbers that appear relevant are relevant to achievement of my mandate. For years, I believed that revenue dollars were the key measure to my success, until I discovered that these dollars were only a byproduct of my activities. A high activity level delivered higher dollars. Some successful companies have learned to excel by focusing on numbers other than the top and bottom line, knowing that revenues come by turning into the fundamentals that drive them. Quote, focus on cost improvement makes it possible for us to afford lower prices, which drives growth. Growth spreads fixed costs across more sales, reducing cost per unit, which makes possible more price reductions. Customers like this, and it's good for shareholders. Please expect us to repeat this loop. Unquote, Jeff Bezos. 8.1, why scoring is boring. Boredom is a vanity-based disease born of the habit of ignoring objective reality. I avoid confronting facts because of the identity discomfort when objective measures run contrary to my beliefs and commitments. That is my own idea about my identity. I am more inclined to check my bank accounts when they are growing. Am I more inclined to check my bank accounts when they are growing or they're shrinking or in the red? When I lose, do I reject the loss as illegitimate? See identity politics below. Avoiding objective measure is a special case of confirmation bias, the tendency to ignore or distort data in defense of my preconceptions to preserve my identity. Quote, when men wish to support a theory, how they torture the facts into their service, unquote. McKay, 1841. I'm happy to be measured so long as the numbers support my expectations. But when my numbers look bad, I may be reluctant to heed them to preserve my sense of pride. Leadership that is afflicted with this face-saving phobia can spiral into a dangerous culture of reality avoidance. TCP teaches us to depose identity for just this reason. The courage to confront reality is what remains once I've abandoned my vanity of self. In effect, there never is any good or bad data, except that my identity makes it so. There is only data. There is only reality. Ignoring that fact can have unfortunate and even catastrophic effects. Face-saving haste, the Challenger disaster. The decision of engineers at Morton Thiokol to delay the launch of the Challenger was vetoed by management at NASA. The numbers were bad. Ambient temperature at the Cape was far below the 40-degree minimum operating specification for the O-rings on the rocket boosters. Having personally committed to the U.S. Congress on a high-profile launch of schoolteacher Christopher McCullough, management's impatience overruled the numbers. Sadly, the numbers prevailed. Silverman, 2020. Was it the cold or conceit that caused the disaster? Arrogance at Agincourt. Though the French outnumbered the English at least 4-1, the October 1415 Battle of Agincourt was an English victory with a 15-1 casualty ratio. That's 4-1 in favor of the French, 15-1 in favor of the French. Well, that is to say, they were the 15-1. The crushing to the one English. The crushing defeat has been attributed to the English defensive strategy. Archers, 2/3 of the English force, were highly skilled in rapid long-distance shooting. Commander of the French, Bouchencourt, knew of the numerical superiority of English firepower, but an insulting rebuke by England's King Henry inflamed his arrogance, triggering him to abandon his initial plan of flanking the English. Instead, he launched a frontal cavalry charge. The English showered the advancing French soldiers with 1,000 arrows per second from a fortified position, throwing the French horsemen into chaos. Arrow quills were, quote, as thick as snow, unquote, History Magazine, 1999, rendering the French numerical advantage meaningless. Was it the arrows or vanity that slew the French?